You ever have one of those nights that just feels off before anything even happens? That was me last November, somewhere outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I was wrapping up a shift driving delivery for a small warehouse company. Nothing fancy, just loading pallets into a box truck and hauling them to stores along backroads and industrial parks. The kind of job where the most exciting part of the night is finding a gas station that still has hot coffee after midnight. It was past 1 in the morning. Cold as hell. My windshield kept fogging up from the inside because the heater barely worked. I'd taken a shortcut to avoid some construction on the highway, an old country road that cut through miles of farmland and woods. No streetlights. No houses. Just a 2-lane blacktop and the occasional rusted road sign. That's when I saw him. A figure on the side of the road, just standing there with his thumb out. Now, I'm not a reckless guy. I don't usually stop for strangers, especially in the middle of nowhere. But something about him looked normal. I don't know how else to say it. He was wearing a thick jacket, jeans, and a gray beanie. Looked like he was in his mid-40s. Not drunk, not stumbling, not waving his arms around like a lunatic. Just standing there calmly like he'd been waiting for someone to stop. And for some reason I did. I slowed down, checked my mirrors, and pulled over onto the gravel shoulder. My headlights lit him up from behind as he walked toward the passenger side. Not in a rush. He opened the door slowly and leaned in. "Thanks," he said. His voice was low but polite. "Just headed up toward Mill Hollow. Anywhere that direction helps." I nodded, motioned to the seat. "Yeah. Hop in." He climbed in without saying anything else. Shut the door. No smell of booze, no weird energy. He didn't even look at me. Just stared ahead like this was the most normal thing in the world. I pulled back onto the road. That first minute of silence was the loudest thing I'd heard all night. I tried to make conversation. "Cold night to be out walking." He gave a small nod. "I don't mind the cold." Another silence. The dashboard lights glowed soft blue. The only sound was the low hum of tires on old asphalt. Then, out of nowhere, he said something that made my stomach turn just a little. "You ever pick up the wrong kind of person, Josh?" I froze. I never told him my name. I didn't say anything at first. I just kept my eyes on the road, trying to replay the last few seconds in my head. I knew I hadn't introduced myself. I hadn't said a word about who I was. My name wasn't printed anywhere visible in the cab. And yet, this man, this total stranger, had just called me Josh like we were old friends. I forced a laugh, trying to play it off. "Sorry, have we met before?" He didn't look at me. He just kept staring straight ahead like he was watching something way off in the distance. "No," he said, "but I know what kind of person you are." I felt a chill run through my hands on the steering wheel. Not the cold kind. The deep kind. The kind that starts in your chest and works its way out, like your body's trying to warn you that something isn't right. "Okay," I said slowly. "Look, if this is some kind of joke." "You're a good person," he interrupted. "You try to do the right thing. Even when it costs you." The way he said it, flat, like it wasn't a compliment. Like it was an observation he didn't really care about. We drove in silence again. The trees on either side of the road seemed to close in tighter the farther we went. No other cars. No houses. Just endless black forest and patches of mist that crawled along the ground like smoke. He shifted slightly in the seat and let out a quiet breath, almost like a sigh. "You passed someone earlier," he said. "Back there at the railroad crossing." I blinked. There had been someone standing near the tracks earlier, far back, maybe 20 minutes before I saw him. But it was just a shape in the dark. I hadn't even slowed down. Just figured it was nothing. I hadn't told anyone about that. Hell, I barely remembered it myself. Now my hands were sweating against the wheel. I turned toward him. "How the hell do you know that?" He looked at me then. Slowly. Just his head turning, like he was studying something under glass. "I was watching," he said. That was it. I hit the brakes. The truck skidded slightly on the shoulder gravel as I pulled off hard to the side. My heart was pounding. I reached over and pointed at the door. "Get out." He didn't move. He didn't even flinch. "Get out of the truck," I said again, this time louder. Still, he just sat there, staring at me. His face calm. No fear. No confusion. Finally he smiled. It was small. Crooked. Not threatening, almost sad. You already let me in, Josh. Then he opened the door and stepped out into the dark without another word. He didn't close the door behind him. He just walked into the trees and disappeared. I sat there for a while, engine idling, staring at the open passenger side door. The inside light had turned on when he stepped out, casting a weak orange glow over the empty seat. My breath was shaky, white fog against the chill that crept in through the open door. I kept expecting him to come back. Maybe to say something else. Maybe to lunge. Maybe to laugh like it was some twisted joke. But the woods stayed silent. I leaned over and pulled the door shut. It slammed louder than I meant it to. The interior lights snapped off, and the cab was swallowed in darkness again, except for the soft blue of the dashboard. I checked the rearview mirror. Nothing but black. I told myself I was fine. The guy was gone. Probably crazy. Maybe high. Maybe just one of those people who sounded creepy but didn't mean any harm. But I still locked the doors. I shifted into drive and eased back onto the road, trying to focus on the lines. The sooner I got home, the better. About 10 minutes passed. I kept looking in the rearview, then over at the passenger seat. It was empty, of course, but something about it didn't feel right. Like the air was different over there. Thicker. Heavy. I turned up the radio just to drown out the silence, but even the music sounded wrong. And then I noticed something. There was a smell. It hadn't been there before. Not smoke. Not sweat. Something dry and sour, like wet leaves left to rot in a closed box. It was faint, but sharp enough to make my throat itch. I opened the window a crack, trying not to panic. I told myself it was just the heater pulling air from outside. Maybe the road had passed some swampy patch, maybe the truck was burning oil, anything logical. But the smell didn't fade. Then, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed in the cup holder. I jumped. Looked down. One new text. From unknown. I didn't open it right away. My fingers were shaking. I don't even know why. Probably because I knew, deep in my bones, I hadn't given anyone my number recently. No apps open. No GPS sharing. No delivery platforms still running. My personal phone had been silent all night. And yet, there it was. I tapped it open. The message was just one word. Mistake. That was it. No number. No context. And I swear to God, the smell got worse right after I read it. I stared at the word on the screen, waiting for something else to follow. Another message. A call. Anything. But nothing came. Just that single word, glowing white in the dark cab. Mistake. I set the phone down, face down, like that would somehow make it go away. My hands were slick on the wheel. The road stretched ahead in endless black, and for the first time, I noticed how narrow it really was. The trees pressed in on both sides like walls, and there were no signs, no landmarks, just mile after mile of dead silence. I turned the radio off. The smell was still there. Stronger now. Like mildew and copper and something else I couldn't place. Like the air in a place where something had died and no one found it for a long time. I checked my mirrors again. Still no headlights behind me. Still nothing ahead. The world outside looked frozen. Then, all at once, the truck's engine began to sputter. Not stall, just a short, wet cough, like it had skipped a beat. The dashboard lights flickered, just for a second. I gripped the wheel tighter and eased off the gas, heart thudding. Not now, I whispered. Come on, not now. The truck kept rolling, but the power felt ugh. The steering wheel felt stiff. The engine made a low whining sound that didn't match the speed. I checked the gauges. Everything read normal. Full tank. Battery fine. No warning lights. And then, the passenger door unlocked. I froze. I hadn't touched anything. The door handle didn't move. Nothing opened. Just the sound, the unmistakable sound of a lock disengaging, like someone inside had just decided it was time to leave. But the seat was still empty. I could see it clearly in the corner of my eye. No one there. No shape. No shadow. Just the seatbelt dangling, unmoved. I reached across slowly and hit the lock button. But 5 seconds passed. Then it unlocked again. My skin crawled. I slammed the lock button down and pulled over hard to the side of the road. Threw the truck into park. I was breathing fast now, the kind of panic that makes your chest tight and your vision blur a little around the edges. I shut off the engine. Everything went silent. For a moment, all I could hear was my own breathing and the ticking of the cooling engine block. Then a sound. From the passenger seat. Not a voice. Just breathing. Slow. Shallow. Like someone trying not to be noticed. I didn't look. I couldn't. I sat frozen, staring straight ahead through the windshield, too afraid to turn my head. The breathing was soft but steady, like it was coming from inches away. Not the kind of wheeze you'd hear from a radio or a leaky vent. This was close. Measured. As if someone was sitting right there, trying to stay quiet. I clenched my jaw and reached, slowly, for the dome light switch above me. My fingers shook as they brushed against the plastic. I didn't want to turn it on. I didn't want to see what might be sitting next to me. But I had to know. I flicked the switch. The light came on. Empty. The seat was exactly as I'd left it. Slightly reclined, seatbelt unused, fabric still warm-looking in the dim orange glow. No one there. Nothing out of place. But the breathing hadn't stopped. My stomach twisted. It didn't make sense. I opened the driver's door and stepped out into the cold, gasping like I'd been underwater. The frigid air hit me like a slap, clearing my head, grounding me. I circled the truck, opened the passenger door, and stared inside again. Same result. Empty. But that smell, it hit me like a wall the second the door opened. 10 times worse now. Like mold and iron and something ancient. I backed away, coughing, slamming the door shut again. I walked in circles in the gravel shoulder, hands on my head, trying to think. Was I losing it? I hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night all week. Maybe this was just exhaustion, hallucinations, stress, bad air in the cabin. That's all it had to be. I pulled out my phone to check the time. 1:43 a.m. Another message notification blinked on the lock screen. No. Too late. I stood there, frozen. I didn't even open it. I couldn't. Then I noticed something strange. The mist in the trees, those pale patches that had been drifting across the road earlier, was now thicker. Heavier. Rolling across the ground like it had a direction. And it was moving toward the truck. I didn't wait. I jumped back inside, started the engine, and floored it. Tires kicked up gravel as I tore back onto the road. The mist swallowed my taillights immediately. I didn't care. I just drove. No destination. No GPS. Just away. But even as I sped off into the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone in the truck anymore. I drove fast, faster than I should have on a narrow road like that. The trees were blurring past on both sides, and the mist clung to the edges of the pavement like it didn't want to let go. Every few seconds, I glanced at the passenger seat. Still empty. But the breathing hadn't stopped. It had changed. Now it was slower. Deeper. Not gasping or panicked. Like whoever, or whatever, was there had gotten comfortable. Like it belonged. My chest was tight. I kept blinking, trying to stay focused on the road. But it was hard. The headlights barely cut through the fog now, and the center line had vanished altogether. There was no signal on my phone, no road signs, no landmarks. Just miles of black. And then I saw something ahead. A shape. At first I thought it was just another tree or mailbox, but as I got closer, I saw it clearly. A man. Standing in the middle of the road. He wasn't moving. No flashlight. No car nearby. Just standing perfectly still like he was waiting for me. I hit the brakes hard. Tires screamed against the pavement. The truck fishtailed slightly but came to a stop about 30 feet away. I leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. It was him. The same man I'd picked up. Same jacket. Same gray beanie. Same dead expression. But I'd seen him walk off into the woods. I watched him disappear. He couldn't be here now. I blinked. And just like that, he was gone. Vanished. No sound. No movement. Just the road ahead, empty again. I sat there, hands shaking, staring into the space where he'd been. And then, from the seat beside me, I heard his voice again. Quiet. You shouldn't have come this way. I turned. Nothing. Just the seat. But then the radio crackled. It had been off for miles, completely silent, but now it hissed like a channel trying to tune into something. The volume knob started turning, on its own, just slowly, inch by inch, until the static filled the cab. And underneath that static, I heard it. A whisper. Not one voice, dozens. Layered. Overlapping. Saying things I couldn't make out. I reached out and yanked the knob. Nothing. It kept going. Louder now. And then, beneath the chaos, one word rose up above the rest. Close. Stay. That word echoed in the cab like it had weight. I slammed the radio off. Actually yanked the power cord free from the dash just to shut it up. The whispers cut off instantly, like someone had been holding their breath behind me and finally stopped. I sat there in the middle of the road, panting, trying not to lose it completely. Then the horn blared. A long, loud honk, my own horn, blaring without me touching a damn thing. I jumped and grabbed the wheel. The sound stopped. And when I looked up, there he was again, standing just a few feet in front of the truck, directly in the beam of my headlights. Same man. Same expression. But this time, his head was tilted slightly, like he was confused by me. Like I was the strange thing out here, not him. He raised one arm and pointed directly at me. No movement. No expression. Just his hand raised, finger aimed through the windshield, steady as stone. I couldn't breathe. He didn't blink. Didn't drop the arm. I shifted into reverse. And he was gone. Gone mid-blink. Just vanished. No footprints. No sound. Not even a flicker in the headlights. I reversed another few feet, heart hammering, then floored it forward. I had to keep moving. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay here. The road twisted suddenly, hard left. I barely caught it and almost hit the ditch. And then I saw something that made me hit the brakes again, harder than before. A sign. Weather-worn. Bent at the edges. Welcome to Danvers Crossing. Danvers Crossing. That name meant nothing to me. I'd never been here. It wasn't on any map I knew. But the worst part was, I'd passed this sign already. I remembered the rust pattern. The way the bullet hole in the bottom left corner left a jagged edge. I remembered thinking, who shoots a town sign? That was nearly half an hour ago. I was back where I started. My truck was circling something. Something that didn't want me to leave. I stared at the sign, unable to move. Welcome to Danvers Crossing. The exact same one I'd passed earlier. Same rust. Same bullet hole. Same crooked metal post leaning like it was tired of standing. I slowly backed the truck up, turned the wheel, and crept forward again, eyes locked on the road ahead. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe there was another Danvers Crossing. Or maybe I'd somehow looped back without realizing it. But the forest was too familiar. Every curve in the road, every break in the trees, I recognized all of it. It was like being trapped inside a photograph, reliving the same image over and over. The mist was thicker now, almost like smoke. My high beams could barely reach past it, and the light seemed to bounce back at me instead of pushing through. I turned them off completely and just relied on the low beams, hoping to see something that would prove I hadn't lost my mind. Then my phone buzzed again. I didn't want to check it. My hands were sweating so badly I could barely hold the screen steady. But I looked. Another message from unknown. You picked him up. I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the floor mat, and I didn't even try to grab it. Because I knew. Somehow, I knew that picking up that man, that thing, was what did this. That simple choice had locked me into something I didn't understand. Something ancient. Something patient. The truck sputtered again. Not from fuel. I had a full tank. This was something else. Like the engine was choking. Like the vehicle itself wanted to stop. I pressed harder on the gas. Nothing. The speedometer dropped. 30, 20, 10. I was pressing the pedal to the floor, but the truck was coasting slower and slower. Then it stopped. The lights cut out. The engine died. I was left sitting in complete darkness. Only the ticking of the cooling metal and the faint crackle of the defrost vent filled the silence. Then I heard it again. That breathing. Closer now. No longer coming from the passenger seat. It was right behind my head. Right behind the driver's seat. Just slow, steady exhales, like someone standing inches from me in the dark. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. But then I felt it. The faintest touch. Cold fingers, pressing lightly against the back of my neck. The cold fingers pressed lightly on the back of my neck, sending a jolt straight through my spine. I swallowed hard, muscles locked tight. The breathing was right there, warm, wet, slow. Like someone standing too close in a crowded room, but in complete silence. I forced myself to look over my shoulder. Nothing. Empty seat. No shadow. No movement. But the pressure stayed. The fingers pressed again, this time just a little harder. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. I reached back with trembling hands to brush the spot, but my fingers met only cold air. The truck's interior light flickered once, then died. Darkness swallowed everything. The radio crackled back on. Static at first, then the whispering. The voices layered over each other again, older, angrier this time. And then one voice spoke clearly. You cannot leave. I slammed the ignition key. Nothing. Turned it again. Still dead. I reached for my phone on the floor. The screen was cracked, the messages all erased. No signal. No calls. No messages. Just silence. I was trapped. And somewhere behind me, breathing, waiting. Panic hit me like a tidal wave. I jerked the door handle, it was locked tight. The windows wouldn't roll down. The truck was a coffin. I pounded the steering wheel, gasping for air, trying to think. Then I remembered the gearshift. I shoved it into neutral. The truck rolled backward slowly. I pressed the clutch and tried to start again. The engine caught. Light flooded the dashboard. I threw the truck into reverse and slammed the gas. The tires screamed as I backed onto the shoulder, the mist swirling like living smoke around me. I didn't look back. I didn't dare. Then I slammed the truck into drive and sped down the road, heart racing like it would burst. The mist pressed close, but somehow I broke through it. The trees thinned. The road straightened. The darkness gave way to the soft glow of distant streetlights. I reached my phone. Signal. Calls. Messages. I called 911. Explained as best as I could. When they asked for my location, I gave them the nearest town. I didn't mention Danvers Crossing, because I wasn't sure if it was real, or just a nightmare I had to live through. But one thing was certain. I would never pick up a hitchhiker at night again.